Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Dr. Cornel West, independent candidate for president, author, scholar, among many accolades. And I wanted to get your reaction because, boy, when the Democratic Party wants democracy to work out, it sure happens very quickly for them. Less than 24 hours, actually. The Democratic Party, it seems, in a well-organized campaign, has basically anointed, coronated Vice President Harris as the Democratic nominee. They say there will be an open convention, but that's all theater because it does not seem anyone will really challenge her or have a chance. Big donors have already pledged $150 million in less than 24 hours. She did raise over $80 million, a lot of that small dollar. But I wanted your reaction because, one of the reasons you said you ran third party is you didn't think you could get a true Democratic opportunity to run in the Democratic primary. What are your thoughts on the party fighting for democracy, shall we say, expediting that very quickly for Kamala Harris?
Well, I think, brother, you're seeing a Democratic Party that's being true to itself. That it's a plantation that's run by the paylords and the overlords who shape the framework and act as if they have democratic concerns, but have very little at all. All you have to do is be a third-party candidate or an independent candidate and try to gain access to a ballot in various states. We've been doing this for a while, and as you know, we're increasing exponentially. We're up to 12, 13. We're going to be up to 25, 30, and 35 fairly soon, but we're cutting radically against the grain. But the reality is, though, brother, is that the predatory capitalist greed that sits at the very center of both parties, it sits at the center of the duopoly, makes it very, very difficult for people to feel as if they can really raise their voices and make a fundamental difference. Usually it's the fake version. That's what we saw with Obama. That's what you see with Biden. That's what you see now with Kamala Harris. And it generates unbelievable excitement, and understandably so. There's no doubt about that. People are desperate. People are deeply frustrated. But they too willingly consent to their own oppression because they too willingly confuse the grasshoppers with the butterflies, which is to say they think that what is real is going to be something that can deliver. And in fact, it turns out to be just another semblance. And I think with Kamala Harris, there's no doubt she wants to be the next Obama. The black community now is fired up across the board to see whether, in fact, we can have the first black woman and the first Asian woman president. And you say to yourself, but the same forces are in place. Her capitulation, the big military is still in place. The Wall Street, Silicon Valley still in place. Her capitulation to Apex and the various lobbies that are actually supporting explicitly genocide. Her connection to AFRICOM, what's going on in Sudan and so forth, you see. Well, what happens to the commitment to truth in that? What happens to the commitment to justice? Because we're creating a terrain now where it's just either or. You either opt for the militarism, you opt for the Democratic Party plantation and its lies, or you opt for the fascism. And you have to, they figure that's either or, there's no space left. Well, that's been the history of so much of the American left. And it's certainly the history now at this particular moment. And it makes it in some ways more difficult. And it makes it in more ways more imperative, as it were. And that's something that we have to take very, very seriously. And that's why our campaign, has been attacked on a number of different levels in a number of different ways.
Something I found astounding for the last 3 weeks, pretty much all of the coverage on cable news, in print, digital, has been Willie or won't he, drop out, and Democrats panicking that they were going to lose to Trump. But there was no mention on any of those platforms that there was no mention during this coverage that there were other choices that could construct full sentences. After the debate, were you contacted at all by any of the major media platforms to give you a chance to, discuss your candidacy, considering they were claiming
that's right.
The sky is falling. We're going to lose to Trump. I would think that they could have put forth that there were other choices.
That's right. That's exactly right. But no, I think, as you know, I mean, MSNBC and CNN are basically state propaganda for the Democratic Party, and they're very explicit about that. And Brother Van Jones says a word or sheds a tear and so forth. It's all within the framework of the Democratic Party and its plight and predicament. Very much like Fox with the fascist Republicans and the Democrats now with their own various kinds of fascism, be it abroad or be it tied to mass incarceration regime. And the real challenge now is going to be, how does one attempt to be constant and consistent in a space where it looks like it's shrinking in terms of people's attention? Now, right now, things are what they are. They'll be different 2 weeks from now. They'll be different after the convention. For all we know, even the convention may not be a coordination. There might be some dissension even there. And the racism of the Democratic Party could become even more explicit. The sexism could become even more explicit as they move toward the nomination of whoever it is, Kamala or so forth. One just has to be constant and consistent enough and not panic and feel as if in this quickly moving situation and zone that one has to in any way give up, sell out, or cave in.
You were on the campaign trail for Bernie Sanders 4 years ago, and I think it's very clear all the media that's feigning ignorance. Well, we didn't know Biden was like this. I mean, it was evident to me 4 years ago, maybe not as bad, but it's very clear. It was very clear he was compromised. Do you think that the media, the Democratic Party, knowingly kind of covered up his true status even when he was running?
There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Because it seems to me that they were willing to roll the dice on Trump winning 4 years ago in order to stop a progressive.
That's right.
Your thoughts?
You're absolutely right. That you pointed this out. Brother Tim Black has pointed this out. Even the Young Turks, Brother Shank and the others have pointed this out, that there's been a massive cover-up. A number of them have been lying. Even Kamala herself came out and said, the debate was a slow start, but a strong finish. No, my dear sister, that's not true. Well, it's just a bad night. Let's try that out for 8 days. No, that's not true. So you got these vicious fascist lies and crimes coming out of Trump, and you can't fight fascism with more lies and more crimes. If you're not going to get at the root of it, economically, speaking to the needs of working people, ideologically, hit their white supremacists, male supremacists, transphobic and homophobic sensibilities, and their anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian, anti-Jewish, anti-Arab sensibilities head on, then the country is going to go fascism one way or the other. Because you're just living in a sick country. And nobody's going to tell the truth. Sooner or later, the fascism, of course, fascists specialize in the efficacy of lies that will hide their crimes, be it in Gaza, be it on the south side of Chicago, be it on the reservation and so forth, you see. And if there's no space left for, in the journalistic world, people to actually not be tied to big money and tell the truth, if there's no space left in the universities for people tied to truth, rather than looking for the next upward mobility move or the next careerist move, then sooner or later, of course, you're going to get fascism. You reap what you sow. The seeds of destruction are always there. No doubt about that. And
speaking of the genocide, which the media has pretty much stopped covering, even when they were covering it, they were, sugarcoating it. But it's reported now that as Prime Minister Netanyahu comes remarkably invited to speak to our Congress, Vice President Harris will not be present behind him. Seems to be, obviously, trying to have her cake and eat it too, satisfy AIPAC and pro-Israel donors, but not optically be linked to Biden's policy? What are your thoughts that she's not going to be there behind him?
I think it's her attempts to symbolically speak to our precious brothers and sisters, part of the abandoned Biden movement, is putting pressure on her. And she wants to somehow do something symbolically that has little to do with policy, has little to do with stopping the siege, little to do with stopping the genocide, little to do with stopping the ethnic cleansing and so on. That the $5.3 million she gets from AIPAC, brother, that's going to be much more influential than not meeting with a gangster named Netanyahu. Let's just be very, very honest about that, you see. But that's the ways in which the political terrain is so corrupt and is so driven by mendacity and criminality, the legalized bribery and the normalized corruption. We're seeing it more and more clearly every day on both plantations, Republican and Democrat, you see. And it is a challenge. I did just see your interview with my sister Jill, though, man. I'm getting tired of Jill lying about me.
If you had a conversation with him, do you think he should drop out so that the third party left could be unified and you are on more ballots objectively?
So let me say, I don't believe in telling people they can't run. So I would not say that. Okay. What I would say is, would you please think strategically here and take a look at France and how we actually beat back the fascist threat? I think it's really important to look at that. I would love personally to hold a conference and have progressives come together, and not just the candidates, but other progressives as well. And let's brainstorm strategy. Let's brainstorm genocide. There are 1 million people, according to the World Food Program, up to 1 million people who are going to die in the next month from this genocide. Do we just want to have a symbolic campaign, or do we really want to ratchet up the pressure on empire? Because you don't have to win the race in order to win the issue. Simply by being a strong, unified campaign, being on the ballot, none of us can afford to either get on the ballot or to defend ourselves against the limitless deep pockets of the Democrats to come after us legally and throw us off the ballot. So our only hope for 1 million people who are under attack right now, who've been tortured for 9 months, have been absolutely living hell. The only hope for them is for us to assert maximum pressure in this election. And I think every candidate who says that they want to stop genocide needs to think strategically about how we actually do that. If we have a voice which is on the ballot across the country, then we cannot be locked out by the media. But if we're not on the ballot across the country, they will lock us out. We will not have a word in edgewise in this election. It will proceed as though everything is fine in Israel and in Gaza. It will not get the time of day. So I think it's really important for people to put aside their personal ambitions and to really take a good hard look. I think this is hard for any candidate to do, which is why this shouldn't just be among candidates. In my view, this should be about the progressive community coming together.
Personal ambition, I dare her use that kind of language. Personal ambition, what is she talking about?
And if people don't know, I interviewed Dr. Stein, who's obviously running for the Green Party nomination. She didn't outright say you should drop out, but she did insinuate that,
but she said put personal ambition aside and drop out. Who does she think she is? She doesn't think she has personal ambition. She said explicitly her addiction to running for election. The Green Party itself, given its wonderful history that I support in many ways, but it's never been fundamentally committed in fighting the legacy of white supremacy and its connection to Cap. It's done some wonderful things. It got wonderful people in it. In my experience with her, with her arrogance, her condescension, her haughtiness, reeking of racist sensibility that I could go into, that I've refused to go into up till now. I got all kind of details on that in relation to the Green Party and my campaign, brother. I can tell you that, but I'm not going to go into that.
We got a little time if you want to share.
No, I just want the people to know. I want the people to know she needs to quit lying on me too. If you're going to have fascist lies and you're going to have the Democratic Party lies, I don't need the Green Party lies either.
Was there something during your experience with the Green Party that made you think that they're not serious about racial equality?
It was more a personal thing of a certain disrespect in the use of the Green Party's apparatus as a way of my campaign being a vehicle for the mobilization of their petitions and the fights over trying to get access to the signatures once we got it, and the spending of the money and so forth and so on. No, I don't want to go into all the details. I've held off all this time. She continues to lie about me. I don't like that. I don't like lies. I don't care if it comes from a Jill Stein of the Green Party. I don't care if it comes from a Trump of the Republican Party. I don't care if it comes from a Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party. Lies are lies, and they're tied to ways in which we can get at the truth and justice. And how would you? I'm the one that needs to drop out and tell Sister Melina Abdullah, my vice presidential running mate, that she ought not to be, and I be a VP for Jill Stein. Please, that is so pathetic and ridiculous and ludicrous.
And how would you answer? Because you're not someone who's accused of being egomaniac or some type of grifter.
Listening to her, right. You would think that. You said
how would you answer what the main mission of your campaign is? Because obviously it's an uphill climb to win. What do you see being that it's not for you some vanity project? What are you hoping to get out of this campaign?
What we're hoping to get out of the campaign is three things, brother. One is to keep alive a legacy of truth-telling and justice-seeking. Second, some organizational capacity that is able to live after. The Green Party's had 35 years for that. And we're able to get almost as many states as them, and I just started just a few months ago, right? And third, the most important thing is to live a life of integrity and honesty and decency so that, in fact, young people and older folk will be able to say that these folk did hold on and attempt to tell the truth. That's why when my dear brother Daruba called, and he just turned 80 years old with Brother Kalanji facilitating this for United Front, I'm all for United Front with anybody. It could be Sister Claudia, it could be the Green Party, it could be the Revolutionary Communist Party, whatever. But a United Front is different than asking somebody in one party to drop out and join us. No, please. And, I'm too old. I've been black for too long to hear that from somebody like Jill Stein. You see.
Just to be fair to her, you're not accusing her of being racist. You're just saying that there were things that went on that in your experience with the Green Party that were not simpatico with a party serious about racial issues.
That's right. I think that's a fair sense of, but I mean, whether you draw an inference or not is up to you. But I like the way you characterize that.
Well, it's a serious accusation, so I want to make sure we're,
I'm just talking, and we're talking about, when you're talking about personal experiences, that's very different than whether one's an anti-racist in terms of various structures and institutions. The Green Party has a long history of being anti-racist. You wouldn't have Bruce Dixon in there. You wouldn't have a Jomo Baraka in there without that. But I'm talking about my personal experience. And personal experience is not the only context, but it's a crucial one if you're going to form solidarity. You have to have trustworthiness. Absolutely. You have to have reliability when you have.
And let me ask you, because obviously she's making the point, or she's claiming that she's the only anti-genocide progressive candidate that's going to be on the ballot in almost every state. You're saying that you envision being on at least 30 to 35 states, if I hear you right. How many ballots are you officially on now, and how certain are you that you would be on at least 30 to 35 state ballots?
At the moment, we have, of course, we've got a number of very rich relations with smaller parties, the Aurora Party and Alaska, the United Citizens Party, which is all black party, South Carolina, wonderful natural law party. We just connected with Florida, the Green Party that Bernie founded in Vermont, and so forth, you see. Very much so. But for me, you see, it's not only just a matter of states. When people say think strategically, which I have an appreciation on, but so often the strategic tends to trump and to foreclose the issues of integrity, honesty, decency. You see, because the strategic can lead toward a whole host of different ways in which you look like you got power. Then you look around on who's running things, and they don't have the same kind of character that you thought they did, and you're still in trouble. So the kind of united front that Deruba's talking about is a united front that brings different parties and pre-party formations together. I'm always there. I've done that for the last 50 years. But when you're actually involved in an electoral political process where you have had experience with particular people and you decide to pull back, and all of a sudden because you pull back, then you get attacked personally, personal ambition, hey, please spare me. I ain't got time for that.
And just to follow up, you think you have enough momentum to get on 30 to 35 state ballots? Because obviously the Democratic Party and in some cases the Republican Party are going to be fighting you.
They are fighting tooth and nail. Absolutely. They are fighting tooth and nail. There's no doubt about that. Very much so.
And putting aside whatever issues you have with her, if for whatever reason you're not successful in getting on that many state ballots, would you stay in it, or would you consider some type of unification, whether it be with her or other independent candidates, so that you're not taking from each other?
Well, I'm not even sure we're taking from each other, though, brother, because so many of those folk who I've talked to tend to be kind of everyday black and brown people. I don't know how many black and brown people voting green. And I don't know how many folk who are green would even come our way. We are open to anybody and everybody. But I'm not really sure that the overlap is what people think it is. The Green Party has its own social base. It's very professional managerial strata and stable working and lower middle class, very much vanilla. That would be a broad characterization. Would that make sense to you?
Yeah.
That's not my social base. That's just not my. I got a slice of it, but that's not my social base.
And you've also been, speaking with, MAGA type voters, trying to appeal to them, as well as RFK Jr. voters. I'm sure you saw today reports. RFK Jr. apparently offered his endorsement to Trump in exchange. In exchange for a position. That is
sick. RFK Jr. Shame on you. You are already reactionary when it came to our precious Palestinian brothers and sisters. Talking about they the most pampered. The Israeli army is the most moral army. That was already sick discourse. To endorse Trump so you can run an agency linked to the issues that you give priority to. Please. And even the folk who supported Kennedy, shame on them.
And he was also campaigning on, going after the special interests, going after the establishment. I mean, that's a pretty establishment move to offer an endorsement. It's kind of quid pro quo, no?
But I mean, it's even worse than special interest politics and lobbyism. But you're saying that you're going to accommodate yourself to fascism and genocide. I mean, what are we talking about here? Let's just be very honest about it. Good God Almighty. That's one of the reasons why even the Democratic Party itself, whatever gestures and overtures and so forth people may make, I say, I can't accommodate myself to genocide. I'm not going to sell precious Palestinian brothers and sisters down the river. I can't accommodate myself to the levels of poverty and the 62% of folk voting paycheck to paycheck and so on. Not at all. Not at this particular moment. Now, I was wrong 4 years ago because I thought that Bernie's movement was going to put pressure in such a way that we could get at some of the roots of the fascism, because it was part of an anti-fascist coalition. We were coming in from the left, and we had some liberals as part of the anti-fascist coalition, and we come together. Bernie gets marginalized, Bernie gets pushed to the periphery, and the corporate wing still takes over, and we end up with infrastructure, some gestures toward climate change, but not substantive ones. Very, very narrow symbolic gestures for student loans and so forth, tied more to interest than principle. We can go on and on in terms of just how empty they were in the end. And then they couldn't even pass the John Lewis voting rights bill when black folk and black women pushed them across the line.
Well, that was my next question, because obviously you've been open when you disagree with Bernie, but in hearing Bernie, AOC, some of these other elected, progressives defending Biden before he dropped out, claiming he's been one of the most progressive presidents in modern history.
Yes,
I genuinely was dumbfounded. Either they have very low expectations, or we have a different definition of progressivism.
But I had said 4 years ago that, Brother Bernie, if you want to support Biden, you don't have to lie. You can just say, I think he's better than the other one. But when you start talking about he's progressive, the most successful, the most effective, pro-working class, because you got some various infrastructure programs that try to mobilize the folk over against China, given the Chinese competition. And you're still rattling in China and Russia and the Middle East for World War III. And you still got a legacy of the mass incarceration regime that you were the architect of. And you still got 500,000 Iraqis dead of the war and invasion that you supported. And now you're denying Gaza, denying genocide, enabling genocide, and want to act as if you are the most transformational and successful and effective and progressive president. And then you get all the pundits and the so-called intellectuals there telling him that. So he uses that in his own interviews. Well, I'm told by all of these scholars, I'm the most so-and-so since FDR. What a joke. What a joke. Significant legislation? Yes, nowhere near what LBJ and others were able to do in terms of domestic policy, but the imperial policies of LBJ that King and others pointed out, that Stokely Carmichael and others pointed out, pulled the rug from under him. So it all should have been with Biden. But the Democratic Party doesn't give a damn about Palestinians, just like they don't give a damn about poor people and working people for the most part. We just have to be honest about that and call it for what it is.
I know you got to go, so one more.
Sure.
I see we have a kind of right now a competition of, lesser of two fascisms. You got Trump at the RNC, signs of signs everywhere, mass deportations now. And Kamala Harris, she wants to run on being a prosecutor. And I believe she's going to run because the Democrats like to move to the right in being tough on crime. One is an ugly racist form of fascism, and the other is just brutality. Your thoughts, because it seems like Republicans are saying they're going to try to run on Kamala Harris being a cop. And I think Kamala Harris probably doesn't mind that.
No, I think you're right, though, brother. We between a rock and a hard place, though, man. This is what happens when empires implode. This is what happens when they decay and decline. When the corruption is so thick and the lies cut so deep that it's very difficult for truth, justice, and love to have any place or to gain a footing. We just can't be discouraged. That's the crucial thing. But we've got to get ready. The Democratic machine now is gearing up. And they're going to say anybody who's not with us must be for Trump. Oh, really? I thought truth, justice, and love had a place. Well, no, it's all about power now. It's just power. It's just power. That's their way of being strategic in the bourgeois sense, in the fascist sense. It used to be neoliberal, shading more and more into various forms of soft fascism and very harsh fascism for the global South. And Gaza is the peak of an iceberg. That's also something that we need to always recognize, because the work that we're doing is in solidarity with the wretched of the earth around the world. So the global South would look at Jordan and say, my God, when he's talking about Flint and that wonderful text you got coming out, when he's talking about those precious working class folk, disproportionately black and others, but working class folk across the board, not able to drink water, and the Democratic Party is talking about this water they made available, point out the lies and the corruption behind it. and the folk in Brazil and the folk in South Africa and those, the dollars in India and so forth, say somebody was trying to tell the truth. Somebody was concerned about justice. Somebody was trying to keep a love supreme alive. And all of us have our faults and fall on our faces, but at the same time, all of us must be in some way accountable.
Absolutely. Tell people what you need. Do you need more volunteers? Do you need lawyers to help you fight the Democrats? Donations? Where can people
we
find
just
out
go
more?
Cornel West 2024.com. Cornel West 2024.com. We've had magnificent volunteers because what we've been able to pull off with the low amounts of cash flow that we have, and no one of us taking one penny ever thinking about one penny, because it's all about the cause, you see. It's all about the sacrifice and the service. And it's been now what? It's almost been a year. It's almost 14 months, man. That's a long time to be out on the road. You know what I mean? Leave of absence from your job, people lying on you and misconstruing you. And then you meet some of the most magnificent human beings in the world, man. The everyday folk. And that makes all the difference, because each of us just have one life to live.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Brother.
Thank you for
taking
taking the time.
All right.
Be well.